Hi everybody, I am Debbie Reynolds with Rocky Mountain Lodge Tea Room, and today I'm super excited to share with you one of my favorite holiday cookies. I'll be teaching you how to make the traditional baklava. So easy to make really, but it's very time consuming and tedious. You'll see, it's actually not, I guess it's not super easy to make, but it's really not as bad as what most people think, and it makes a bit, so it's a great way to learn. And so this recipe you can find on my website, at rockymountainlodge.com. And this is my cookbook that you can also purchase. The recipe is not in this cookbook, it was in my original one, but the recipe is on my website, rockymountainlodge.com, and click on the recipes tab. But you can purchase this cookbook, which has 500 other recipes of mine, for $10 at our gift shop, also at rockymountainlodge.com. I'll move that aside for now. Make sure you like this video, share this video, comment. If you have any questions while I'm making this recipe, feel free to post them on there. My husband Brian, who is filming for me today, will shout them out to me and I'll answer for you. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the sauce that we're going to put on top later on after the baklava is done. But it needs about 20 minutes to cook down, so while we're making the baklava, the sauce can be cooking down. So this is a honey lemon sauce that we're going to make. So for the sauce, let me turn my little cheat board around, my instructions here. So for this, we're going to have 1.5 cups of granulated sugar in our pot here. And then we are going to add 1/4 cup of honey. And I want to show you a little tip about measuring honey and getting it out of the little container that I do. I will actually spray my measuring cups with nonstick spray. And then I'll pour my honey in whatever container I want, and then it should come out easier. I know, I'm sorry I didn't have this pre-measured for you, but I wanted to be able to show you how to get it out easier. And of course, this takes a bit of time. So after I add this honey, then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of grated lemon peel, lemon zest, and then 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, a 2-inch cinnamon stick, and 1 cup of water, which I also forgot to measure.
You could also take the lid off.
Yeah, okay, that might go probably a good thing. Go a little faster. Yeah, since I only have about 2 tablespoons in here. Oh, lots faster. My hubby is so smart. I got a good one. Okay, so here's 1/4 cup of honey, and you can see that it usually comes right out when you spray it with nonstick spray. There might be just a little bit left in there. Okay, but otherwise it takes a little bit more effort to get that out of there. Okay, so now we'll add the rest of the ingredients. Close up that honey bear. Okay, so we're going to have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Actually, I think that's a little more than 2 tablespoons. I just squeezed a whole lemon in here, so I think it's more than that. It is. I don't want it too tart. So there's 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. It's about 1/2 of a whole lemon. And then this is about 1/2 teaspoon of lemon zest that I grated from that lemon. And I like to take my lemon peels and put them down my garbage disposal, and it kind of cleans out that and makes it smell really good. And a 2-inch cinnamon stick, I'll throw that in there. And then 1 cup of water. I'll get that quickly.
Hot water?
I'm using hot water. It doesn't have to be hot water. I'm just using hot water to get it started a little quicker. All right. And so now I'm just going to put this on here, bring it to a boiling, and then let it simmer for about 20 minutes until it kind of thickens and becomes syrupy. Let me get a little coaster here to put this whisk on. I'll just come back and stir it every so often. Now I can go ahead and make our baklava. All right, so for the baklava, what you're going to need is you're going to need a 1/2 sheet pan. It's not quite It's not, let's see. I can measure it for you. I'll do that here in a little bit. But, anyways, I guess I should have measured that for you before.
10 by 14?
10 by 14. 1 second. I'm just going to really quick get my measuring stick. Sorry about that. And it also depends on the phyllo dough that you have. This is 16 inches. It's a 10 by 15. So if you measure the bottom, 10 by 15. 14, it's 14 and a quarter on the bottom, 9 and a half on the bottom, and then it's bigger on the top.
I was close enough.
Yes, my hubby's pretty good at that. I should have just trusted him. Anyways, okay, so, and then you're gonna get a package of phyllo dough. I'm not sure if it's pronounced phyllo or phyllo. I pronounced it phyllo, but this particular one has 2 sleeves of phyllo dough in it. And so...
How many sleeves do you need?
You need 1 sleeve for this recipe. But I made 1 batch earlier, and so now I'm going to make the other one. And I did notice when I opened these up that these sheets are a little bit shorter than what they used to be in the past. So they're going to come in this little plastic wrap. Now you want to be really careful when you're working with phyllo to work super quickly.
So it was frozen, right?
It was frozen. You have to thaw it according to the package directions. You thaw it overnight in the refrigerator or about 3 hours on the counter. For the filling, what we're going to need is I've got 4 cups of finely chopped walnuts, a ½ cup of granulated sugar, and 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And this is the filling for the baklava. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this up so it's ready. One of the things that you'll want to know when you're working with phyllo dough, oh yeah, that's a little hot. Okay, now this is boiling. It's nice to have a helper. So our sauce is boiling, so now I'm going to turn it down to simmer and let this just simmer away for about 20 minutes. That's about how long it's going to take us to make this, the baklava, and then we'll be ready to do that. So right here I have some melted butter. I have 2½ sticks of melted butter, which is 1½ cups of butter. Turn that around, make sure. 1¼ cups of melted butter. So we got some melted butter, we have our pan, we have our nut mixture, which is our filling. 4 cups of ground walnuts, not totally ground, but chopped finely. I just threw them in my food processor and whirled them up for a little bit until they're ground finely, chopped finely. And then ½ cup of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon, set that aside. And then, I'll move it over here actually.
What kind of cinnamon?
Ground cinnamon.
Like Saigon?
Oh, yeah. I'm using Saigon cinnamon. My husband really likes Vietnamese cinnamon, which I do have. Now, one of the things about this phyllo dough is you unwrap it, and it is actually super duper thin, like thinner than paper. So you want to be really careful, and it's going to dry out really quickly. So what I do with this, and I'm just going to set it right here. It's super duper thin. So we're going to carefully open this up. And I'll show you these here in just a minute as to how thin they are. But they'll dry out really quickly. So what I do in between working with every sheet, there's about 20 sheets in each package. And we're going to use all 20 of these. I will put a piece of saran wrap. Okay. All right. Don't you just love how this plastic wrap is so wonderful and sticks to everything, including itself the best. All right, I need a little more room. Okay, and then I also, just to keep this down, I like to cover this with just a slightly damp towel, just to add a little bit of weight to that so it just doesn't all come up and dry out. So that way while I'm working on that. So this is what all we need. So now we have everything we need to make our baklava: melted butter, phyllo dough, and our filling. So now you're just going to take some of your butter and...
What's your sleeves?
I know. I did a batch earlier today. So, and then we're just going to brush the bottom of our pan with some butter and the edges. Now this pan, normally, when I've gotten phyllo dough in the past, it would come up the sides. It would be that long where it would come up the sides. This particular dough is a little shorter, so I have a tip for that later. So this one's not going to come up the sides, so we don't have to worry about that. I am going to move this over here though. I'm going to change places. Okay, so I do want to show you though this phyllo dough, how thin this is. So you can kind of see. Can you come over here, honey, and show
I got it.
Oh, you got it. How thin this is. It's really super thin, and it can crack and it can break. Now I'll just line this up along one edge and lay it down. It does kind of, it might want to crack on you or break on you, but it's super careful, but just be as careful as you can in laying that down. It's okay if it cracks a little bit. And then you're just going to take some of your butter and you're just going to brush these layers. So what we're going to do is there are 20 pieces of phyllo dough, and I did say I cover that in between each one and I got distracted. I'll do that next time around. You're going to brush every layer with butter, and we're going to do all 20 pieces, and I'm going to do 4 layers of 5 pieces of phyllo dough in each layer. So we're going to do 5 pieces of dough right now and brush in between every one. It's a little tedious, but this is what makes it so good, and all those flaky layers in there.
There's people that make these things like 8-foot sheets.
Yeah,
and
did
make
we
it.
watch some video about that from
over in like
over in Europe
Turkey
somewhere?
or somewhere.
Yes, crazy. So that's 2. I know I said I'd do this in every one, but I'm going to wait till I do the filling, just for time's sake. I don't want to just tear these, so I'm just trying to be careful. And if it sticks to each other, I don't want to use a wet towel directly on this because you don't want it to get wet and stick to each other. This one kind of is. So you just have to be careful. And if it tears,
And just make it work.
yeah, it really is okay. Don't fret. It's pretty forgiving. So this one is kind of falling apart a little bit. But that's what happens in real life. So then we're just going to try to spread it out.
And the fresher the better, right?
The fresher the better, yes. I mean, you just take it out of the freezer. And so, there you go. But they're going to have all these layers on there, so it's all going to fall apart in your mouth anyways when you're eating it. It's going to be a melt in your mouth thing. Okay, and this is simmering away, our sauce. So that's doing great. So this is layer 3 of our first out of 4 rows that we're going to do. Don't be stingy with your butter. Make sure you get every single inch of that phyllo dough covered. Okay. I took this out of the fridge yesterday morning. I mean out of the freezer yesterday morning, so it's been in the fridge all night and all day today. Okay.
Is that your last layer?
This is number 4.
Oh.
Sometimes I lose count. Somebody said you should just put some M&Ms down or some peanuts or something down, and every time you do a layer, eat a peanut or eat a nut, and then you'll know how many you've done.
You do shots?
Do shots. Boy, I can't tell you.
No.
I don't think I'd get through
You wouldn't.
a whole batch.
You wouldn't make the first layer.
That's true. I would not. I'm kind of a lightweight when it comes to stuff like that. Okay, so this is our 5th layer. So what I'm going to do now is, because I don't want this to get dried out, is I'm going to go ahead and cover this with my plastic wrap and a very lightly damp cloth. And we're going to go ahead and brush our 5th layer of dough here. You can also use this phyllo dough to make appetizers and spanakopita. There's so much you can do with this. All right, so that's 5 layers. And then we're going to take 1.5 cups. Be generous with your cups here because we have added sugar. So about 1.5 cups here of our filling. A little over. And then we're just going to spread this around on the dough. And this is, we're going to do a total of 3 of these with 5 layers each, and then 1 final layer of just the phyllo dough. I'm probably not going to do everything today because I want to show you how everything works. Now this next layer is kind of tricky because you've got your nuts there and they're dry. We don't have butter on top of that. We're going to put this down, another layer down here, and now when we're going to brush it, it's going to want to move around a bit. So what I tend to do is I'll just kind of dab it all around. Otherwise, if I try to spread it right now, it's just going to slide all over the place. And I'll be chasing my dough all day long. So I'll do that, and then don't be afraid to get your fingers dirty. You don't want to lick your fingers in between these layers, though. Did anybody used to eat butter when you were a kid? Just like eat butter, sticks of butter?
It's gross.
I think I did as a kid. I don't necessarily remember doing it, but my parents said I did, and I used to get in trouble. And one of my grandkids liked to do it, but this is a good reason why we have our little towel. All right, so now we're going to do 5 of these. So there's 1.
And you can't cheat.
You can't cheat by what? How would you
Doing
cheat?
2 at a time.
No, because you got to have that butter in between. That's what makes them so decadent. This butter. Okay, this has gotten to
No cheating.
stop not simmering anymore, so let me turn that up. So, again, butter, butter, butter in between all of these. So we're going to have a total of 20 layers and 3 rows of filling. Anybody have any questions so far about this? Nope? Okay. Well, while we're continuing to do our layering, I'll tell you a little bit about some of the other things that we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. With Christmas coming up, we tend to host, we don't tend to, we host family Christmas every other year, and then Thanksgiving the opposite year. So I just have to help me remember how many layers I've done.
2.
That's 2, yes. And so this year we're hosting Christmas. We're going to probably have, I don't know, somewhere between 40 to 45 people here is kind of average what we have. So it's a lot of people. We'll have a lot of food. I thought maybe during our last few minutes of preparation, actually it takes about a half an hour, you know, when you're carving your turkey and your ham, and we do prime rib also. We do two turkeys, ham, prime rib, a ton of sides, rolls. Same thing everybody else pretty much does in America, I think. But we have to do it for that many people. So it gets a little chaotic here in my kitchen. That's 3. So I thought I would kind of film all of that and then kind of do it in a fast pace. What do you call that? I don't know what it is, but you do it fast. There's a way you can do that. I'm not very technically challenged here, so I don't know what they call that.
4.
What's that?
4.
A 4? Oh, yeah, 4. Layer 4. Okay, so this is 4. And then I would post that, you know, along with like the flight of the bumblebee or something, because that's kind of what it's like around here. It's a little crazy when we have like 17, 18 kids running around, a ton of adults, and it's a little crazy. And we're trying to get all the food on the table at the same time. Might be kind of comical for you guys. So we're going to do 1 more of these, and then we'll do another row of filling. But the good news is we're halfway done with this baklava. And I think I forgot to turn my oven on. But you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees. We're going to end up baking this for, oh, that's 2 layers.
You want me to do it?
Sure. He's going to turn my oven on.
Upper.
Upper oven, and set it for 350, because if you, I always like to preheat my oven for 25 degrees hotter than what I want to bake it at, because, 25 degrees hotter than what I want to bake it at, because every time you open your oven, it drops your temperature by 25 degrees. So that way, if I preheat it to 350, if I wanted it at 325, then when I get my stuff in there and close it up, it's 325, and then I just change the temperature to 325. All right, I forgot to close this up because now we're going to do some more nuts. That was layer 5. So we're going to do the second third of our nuts. So basically we're doing a third of our nuts every layer. And our sauce is simmering away again. And don't worry if your nuts go off the edge, no big deal. You can just have some toasted nuts at the end with your extra nuts. Just kind of grab a spoon and gobble them up with some toasted nuts or throw them in something else. So next week for our video, since we have time to kill here while I'm working on this, we're going to be making one of the holiday appetizers that I always make for both Thanksgiving and Christmas. I will always make stuffed brie, which is brie en croûte, where you take a...
And why do you have to dab this layer?
I dab this layer because it's so loose. It'll just slide around if I try to brush it. So I just try to get some of this butter on by dabbing it at first.
Because that's the first layer on top of the nuts.
That's the first layer on top of the nuts. And then I'm just going to get my fingers dirty on this one, but that's okay. And spread that off to the edges. If you need a little more, just go get a little more. You definitely don't want to be skimpy on your butter. This is what makes it so good. Okay. You just want to brush it all out. You want to cover every little bit of phyllo dough that you have on here, or else they're not going to stick together. Well, or it might stick together, but you won't have all that goodness in between all those layers. So that's 1, that's 2. Now this one is a little crooked. That's okay. Don't worry about it. It really does not have to be perfect. It's all going to get cut up and eaten at the end anyways. Okay, so this is layer 2 here. And our sauce is doing good. Our honey lemon sauce is just simmering away. We're just trying to get that thickened up a little bit to kind of like the consistency of some syrup. Did y'all hear about the syrup shortages they're having in Canada right now? They're having syrup shortages in Canada. I heard this on the news yesterday.
They tapped their maple reserves.
They did. They tapped their reserves, which they said the majority of their syrup is imported to the United States from Canada. So, this is layer 3. We're getting there. Like I said, baklava is a labor of love, but it's so worth it. And as you can see, it's really not too difficult to do. It's just a little tedious. So worth it. I've done these for cookie exchanges before. I host a cookie exchange every year. There's so many people that come. Everybody has to do like 12 dozen cookies. We all share a little bit of them and try them all out, and then everybody takes home a dozen of everybody else's cookies. Was that 2 or 3?
3.
That was 3, okay.
Sure.
I think so too. I think so, but you know, if it's not right, it really is okay. You don't have to be too precise, but my mom, if she was doing this, she would actually go and try to peel these apart because my mom is quite a stickler for detail. So I have some of her OCD-ness in me. I don't always think OCD is a bad thing, but I don't know. What do you think, Brian? My little OCD? I think he wants to plead the 5th. He's not saying anything. He's just giving me a look. That's 4. So, I know. Certain things I am pretty picky about. When it comes to stuff in the kitchen, I'm picky. You should have seen us when we would work together in the kitchen during our B&B days. It was not always a pretty sight. I was quite the detail person, and he would just be, it's just fine. And probably our guests would think it's just fine too, but it was me, and I was just pretty particular. Okay, so this is layer 5. And so we're going to have 1 more layer of filling. And then we'll do the top layer with 5 more layers, or however many I have left in case I miscounted. And then I'll show you how to cut your baklava, and then we'll bake it and glaze it.
Susan Falwell-Willen says that she's hoping to visit you with your cousin Gail.
Oh, yay! I would love that. Gail has mentioned that you guys are thinking about coming out next year. I would love that. You'll have to let me know what you want me to cook for you guys when you come. We can have a tea party. I love this. Sorry, this is a little tedious. I know Brian said that I just need to. Oh, I forgot to put the nuts. Oh no, this is number 5.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to get distracted here. Okay, this is layer 5. I know Brian's like, just stop here. I think he wants me to just stop here and show you what to do.
Nah, go ahead.
But I need to show you how to cut it. Okay, so we'll use the rest of our nuts here. Now sometimes, I think my Bible study leader has gone to the Middle East. She goes often and does women's ministry stuff there. Not often, maybe once or twice a year. To the Middle East in their baklava. She's brought home baklava for us to try, and I think it had pistachios in it. So
Very international dessert.
yeah, it is. And it's pretty yummy. You can make these bigger pieces. You can make them smaller pieces. When I have to make it, oops, I'm being a little careless. Getting carried away. You have to be gentle with this stuff. Okay, let me cover this one up again. It's starting to get a little dry. Then it's hard to, they'll start kind of peeling apart in little bits and pieces. So I'll just set that there. Okay, so this one, my sauce is doing really well.
So you have to dab this one, right?
Yep, you dab this layer. That's the way I found it. Now I have also tried to get spray butter. I had like a little spray container one time and I put melted butter in that, but that didn't work out too well because the butter just solidified and got too cool and then just clogged it all up. So that didn't work too well. So after making baklava many, many times, I have just found that this tends to be the easiest for me. Now some of y'all might have other ideas, and if you do, just put them in the comments section so that I can learn from you guys. I am not opposed to learning. I'm always learning stuff. And I'm one of those self-taught cooks, so I've not been schooled, so I have a lot to learn. So there's one. We'll just use up the rest of our dough here. Just a few more pieces. We're almost done. And then we'll cut it, and then we'll bake it. And then we'll put the sauce on it after we take it out and cools. It has to bake for about 40 to 50 minutes at 325 degrees until it's nice and golden brown. I know this seems like a long thing. So anyway, so I started telling you about next week. Next week, which is going to be, let's see, just today's December 2nd, so it'll be December 9th. Next Thursday, December 9th at 2 o'clock p.m. we'll be making brie en croûte. And so everybody in my family just loves this brie. I'll take a wheel of brie, put a layer of a filling on top of it. I think everybody's favorite is the cinnamon pecan glaze that I make. And then wrap it up with puff pastry. And then bake it. And then we serve it with sliced apples and pears. You can also serve it with little pieces of bread or crackers. Our favorite are apples and pears. And what was it, about 4 years ago when I ended up in the urgent care on Christmas Day?
Meh.
You know, about 4 or 6 years ago, I ended up in urgent care on Christmas Day when I got a brand new knife for Christmas. And I was slicing those apples and pears and slit my hand, the palm of my hand open, and had to go to the urgent care on Christmas Day.
They said they were waiting for her.
They actually did. They said they were waiting for a knife wound. So I was able to make their dreams come true that day. But I got back and it was kind of a sad day for me because I got back. I missed out on all the appetizers, and so did Brian because he took me. And then I always like to serve china. And my family all overrode me and said since I couldn't do dishes, we were all having paper plates. I was a little bit mortified to have paper plates on Christmas Day, but we've actually ended up switching to paper plates on Christmas Day pretty much always now because we just have so many people. Though I really miss using my nice china on Christmas. So I just have to find other ways to use China, like my tea parties, which I'll be starting next month. I'm really excited about my tea parties. Okay, just a couple more layers, I think, and then we'll only have a couple more minutes to go for the video. Thanks for hanging in there with me and being patient. I made a whole batch of this morning and timed it, and it took like, I think 35 minutes from start to finish. But I didn't have to go and get a yardstick and get the water, and I didn't make the sauce. So this video might be a little longer. Totally worth it though. Now everybody knows how to make baklava from scratch. So it's definitely worth the effort. So you can see that I do have lots of nuts all over the place in here, around the edges. Now if your phyllo dough goes up the edges, then you won't have that problem. And this is our last sheet, so I think we did end up with 5 on here. I wasn't even counting, but I think that's 5. So now what we're going to do is we're going to brush it with butter for the last time here, and then we're going to cut it. And then all of our remaining butter, we're going to pour over the top, and then we'll bake it for 40 to 50 minutes at 325 degrees. Okay, so that's done. So let me show you really quick how we are going to cut it. You can cut it any way you want. I'm just using a glove just because it's a little easier so it doesn't stick to my hand here.
Yeah, it's super sticky.
The butter,
Yeah.
it's kind of greasy, and then the top layer of dough will want to come up. So now you can do 2 things. I'll show you the one that I actually did earlier. It's still a little warm. This is the one that I made earlier. And so I went in diagonals this direction, and then I went in diagonal this direction. And they kind of come out like little diamonds or squares. Now if you wanted, you could cut it straight across this way. So those tend to be more squares. And so I'm going to do this one. And I'll just make a few rows just to show you what it would look like. You want to cut all the way through to the bottom. I'll actually cut all of these this way, and then I'll just do a couple the other way. Now if you want these bigger than these, you can just make these cuts larger. I never really measure, I just eyeball. But if you want to be precise, you can measure.
And the first cuts get pretty easy. It's the next ones.
The top row, the second cuts, I'll show you how that goes here in a moment. After we get through all of these. But I already have people that want some baklava. The girls next door, some of the grandkids next door, when they found out I was making baklava, they said, I want some. I said, no worries, you'll get some. Okay, so now this one I did different, you can see, than that one. That one I went diagonal and diagonal. This one I went straight across, and then I'm going to go diagonal, and then we should have diamonds. But this way I get to see what I mean, how it comes off. So now we're just going to go across here, and we should end up with diamonds. They want to come up a little bit. So I'm not going to do all of this just for time's sake. I'll come back and finish it later when I go to bake it. But I want to be careful. So you can see how these are going to be little diamond shapes. And those are little squares. So, but yeah, they want to stick to that top layer wants to come off. So when we're all done cutting this, we're just going to pour whatever remaining butter we have over this, and then we're going to bake it for 325 degrees for 40 to 50 minutes, and it will come out like this. And then you want to take it out and let it cool for just a little bit, and then we're going to take our sauce that we have. Going to take that cinnamon stick out of there. Okay, so it has reduced a bit. Let me get this out of here. Okay. And we want to get, I'm going to get another pastry brush. And then we're just going to take this glaze that we've made, this syrup, and now we're just going to brush the whole thing on here. And as it dries, it gets that nice sticky topping on there. But this is what makes it so good also, this honey glaze that we're putting on here. It makes it nice and shiny. And so you're just going to brush this on there until it's all used up. It'll be pretty gooey, but it's going to get in all those little nooks and crannies and ooze down in all the sides. I could just pour it on there if I wanted to. I tend to just be a little bit more particular about getting it on all the places. But you can, if you don't want to brush it on, you can take a little, I don't know what I did with it. I'll get another one. You can get a little ladle. I have a ladle out here. It's somewhere buried amongst all my stuff. Okay. And I'm going to stick it together. Okay. You can just ladle it all on here also. That piece has come off. That little top layer. So we have all these little flaky layers. And so if you don't want to brush it on, you can ladle it on. I would ladle it on slowly. And this is how you make baklava.
Will that amount of sauce make enough for two?
No.
Just one?
Just one.
Okay.
And so this is, normally you just kind of keep brushing and brushing and brushing it on. But this will dry, it'll set and be kind of sticky and gooey. It gets in all of those little layers. I'm just, for time's sake right now, I'm just ladling it on. And I've got almost all of it used up. So, we'll just stop right there. Okay, so here is our baklava. Oh, there's my ladle. I knew I had it. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to eat some. Because why have baklava if you can't eat it? Typically you want to let this cool thoroughly and so this sauce kind of sets. But I'm going to pull out a couple of pieces, an end piece. And you can see our baklava, all of our little pieces here, all those little layers. I don't know if you can get in there and see all the different layers. You might be able to even see it in here. Typically though, you want to let this set. And you can see here all those layers. That way that sauce will get, because the honey will crystallize. And so you can see all those different layers. And you hear the crunch. So there's baklava. And come back next week and we're going to make some brie en croûte. But you have to just eat one. Typically you need to let it wait. Okay, I'll leave that one there. Got to eat one. So good. All those layers that are buttery and flaky. And then the sweetness from the syrup that we made. So good. I would recommend letting this set though until it's totally cool. Alright, so that is how we make baklava. And come back next week, next Thursday, December 9th, and we will make brie en croûte so you can have some great appetizers. And you can find this recipe at our website at RockyMountainLodge.com and click on the recipes tab. It's under the cookies section. And you can get our cookbook. This cookbook is $10 at RockyMountainLodge.com and click on the gift shop tab. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks for joining me and hanging in there during this process of making baklava. And I hope to see you all next week. Bye, everybody.